The air inside the Helion Academy's training chamber vibrated with low, pulsing hums. Metallic walls shimmered faintly under ultraviolet light, casting long, jagged shadows across the cadets standing at attention. In the center of the room, a single figure knelt, small, human, and entirely out of place among the towering alien silhouettes. Commander Vorr Tal'Zek paced slowly before her. His armor caught the light in sharp edges of violet steel, his four eyes narrowing with calculated disdain. Around them, dozens of alien cadets, scaled, feathered, plated, watched in silence. None dared speak during the obedience test. Evelyn Drake's breathing was steady, her head bowed just enough to meet their expectations, but not out of submission. The collar around her neck glowed faintly, a restraint designed to suppress neural resistance. It had broken countless species before her. Vorr claimed no one could endure the resonance longer than 8 seconds. She was at 14. A tremor ran through the floor as the commander increased the power. "You will obey," Vorr said, his voice layered with mechanical undertones. "Your defiance is not courage. It is malfunction," Evelyn didn't reply. The hum grew sharper, drilling through her skull, each pulse threatening to splinter her thoughts. She focused on a memory, a field of grass under Earth's sun, her brother laughing as he threw a ball too far. She'd chased it, the air alive with warmth. That world was gone now, but in her mind, it still burned bright enough to drown pain. 17 seconds, murmured one of the cadets. A hiss rippled through the crowd. No human had ever lasted that long. Vorr stopped pacing and leaned down, his face close enough that she could smell the metallic tang of his breath. "Your kind clings to sentiment. You think pain has meaning? It does not. Pain only measures distance between power and weakness." Evelyn met his gaze, her eyes calm. "Then why do you sound afraid of it?" The room went still. Vorr's hand twitched near his control device. For the briefest instant, his expression broke. Irritation. Confusion? He pressed the command, and the collar's hum became a scream, light fractured in her vision. Every nerve burned like fire. Her heartbeat thundered against her ribs, but she refused to give him the satisfaction of reaction. She wouldn't scream. Not here. Not in front of them. When the power cut, she slumped forward, catching herself on trembling hands. Sweat traced down her jawline. The collar dimmed. 30 seconds. Vorr circled her again, claws clicking against the floor. "You believe endurance is victory?" he asked. "No, it is surrender in slow motion." Evelyn drew in a breath and rose to her knees, blood dripping from her nose. "Then why can't you make me surrender faster?" A few cadets exchanged quick glances. The tension shifted, quiet disbelief mixed with curiosity. Vorr noticed. His tone hardened. "She is no example to follow. Watch what happens when defiance outweighs worth." He pressed another sequence into the console. A floating hologram appeared above them, a chart showing her neural responses, spikes, burns, stability curves. He magnified the endurance data. It was perfect. Inhumanly consistent. "That's impossible," muttered an aide. Vorr silenced him with a glare. "Commander," another cadet spoke cautiously, "the resonance should have fractured her synapses by now." "She's cheating," Vorr said sharply. "Human biology must be interfering with our sensors." But the doubt had already taken root. Evelyn slowly straightened, one hand wiping blood from her chin. "Maybe your machines can't measure what they don't understand." Vorr stepped closer, towering over her. "And what would that be, human?" She met his eyes, unwavering. "Choice." Silence hung heavy. Vorr's claws flexed, but he didn't strike. He turned to the others. "Dismissed," he barked. The cadets hesitated, then dispersed into the corridors, their whispers echoing down metal halls. When the chamber emptied, Vorr faced her again. The arrogance in his voice returned colder than before. "You think clever words will save you? You will learn, girl. This place was built to remove illusions. By the end of this term, you will crawl to me for permission to breathe." Evelyn tilted her head slightly. "If I'm crawling, Commander, I'll make sure it's toward freedom, not you." He struck her, not with anger, but precision, the way a sculptor chips stone. The impact sent her staggering into the wall. She coughed, spat blood, and steadied herself. "Emotion makes you weak," Vorr said. "Funny," she whispered. "It's the only thing keeping me standing." He stared at her for a long time, then turned away. "Tomorrow, you begin the mind drill simulations. If you fail, you will be erased from this academy's records. Do not mistake my patience for mercy." "I don't," she said quietly. He left without looking back, his steps fading into the metallic corridor. Evelyn remained standing until the lights dimmed. When she was finally alone, she unclipped the collar, her fingers trembling slightly. The device left a faint burn on her neck. She examined it. Then, instead of discarding it, she reattached it loosely around her wrist. A trophy. A reminder. She walked toward the dorm sector, past the alien cadets who pretended not to stare. Some whispered insults, others kept silent. She ignored them all. Every hallway was lined with propaganda banners. Order brings peace. Obedience brings unity. Each slogan sounded more like a threat than a promise. Her room was small. Metal bed, one dim light, no window. She sat down, pulled out a thin piece of carbon paper from under her pillow, and began to write small notations. Each line contained data: energy frequency, pulse interval, reaction time. While Vorr thought she'd endured the test through emotion, she'd been studying. Learning the collar's pattern, its power curve. Every second she'd suffered had been an analysis. They want obedience, she thought. I'll give them understanding first, then make them regret it. The lights flickered as she set the paper aside. Somewhere far below the academy's decks, engines hummed with alien rhythm. She lay back on the cold metal bed, staring at the ceiling. Her mind drifted again to Earth, to her brother's voice, to the sky before it burned. The Concord had called their invasion integration. They said humanity resisted because it feared progress. But Evelyn knew the truth. They feared humans because they couldn't predict them. She smiled faintly. "Let's see how long it takes before they realize," she whispered to the dark. A distant alarm sounded. Training rotation call. She had 4 hours before dawn cycle. Enough time to rest, but not enough to forget. As she closed her eyes, the faint glow of her repurposed collar blinked once, a quiet pulse of light against her skin. To anyone else, it was a restraint. To her, it was a countdown. The game had begun. The academy's corridors pulsed with sterile light when Evelyn woke. The air smelled faintly of ozone, recycled, artificial, lifeless. Every morning began the same way: horns, formations, inspections. But this morning, there was an added whisper among the cadets. The human had survived the obedience test. As she walked toward the neural training hall, eyes followed her. Some sneered. Some simply stared. A few looked curious, the kind of curiosity that carried danger. She ignored them, matching her stride to the metallic rhythm of the floor plates. Commander Vorr waited at the end of the hall. His posture was rigid, his expression unreadable. Behind him stood 2 sub-commanders and a control unit humming faintly. "Cadet Drake," he said, "you will participate in your first cognitive compliance drill. If you resist, the system will record your disobedience as insubordination. And you know what happens then." Evelyn's tone was even. "You erase failures." "I read the handbook." Vorr's eyes narrowed. "Then you know what's at stake." "I do," she said, stepping into the chamber. The room's walls curved inward, a smooth dome covered in flowing glyphs. At its center floated a crystalline sphere, the neural interface. When she approached, filaments extended, brushing her temples with cold precision. "Begin," Vorr ordered. The world around her dissolved. She stood in a simulated field, under a violet sky. Structures of alien design rose in the distance, towers of bone and metal. The air shimmered, charged with digital heat. Voices whispered at the edge of hearing, fragments of orders, commands, condemnations. The simulation was designed to fracture thought and rebuild it under control. A figure materialized before her, a mirror image of herself, but silent, eyes empty. The system's voice spoke through it, deep and synthetic. "Comply. Yield control." Evelyn stared at it. No. The duplicate tilted its head. Resistance detected. Initiating correction. Pain tore through her nerves. Sharp, clean, designed to feel infinite. But she'd expected it. Every pulse had rhythm. Every pattern had logic. She breathed through it, counting. 4 beats between surges. 7 between resets. A machine could only imitate cruelty, not sustain it. She stepped forward through the pain and reached out. Her hand passed through the image. The simulation flickered. Override protocol breach, the system stuttered. Outside, Vorr watched the readings spike. She's destabilizing the core pattern, one of the sub-commanders warned. Impossible, Vorr snapped. Increase resistance levels. Inside, the sky darkened. The ground split into canyons of light. The system projected new forms, alien soldiers, towering, faceless. They surrounded her, weapons drawn. Submit, they demanded in unison. Evelyn looked up at them, calm amid the chaos. You keep saying that word. I don't think you understand what it means. The first soldier lunged. She sidestepped, letting the simulation's motion lag expose the weakness. Another attacked, same delay. She moved like a dancer, tracing a rhythm only she could hear. Within moments, the simulation faltered again, glitching into static. Outside, alarms began to chirp. Vorr's hand clenched into a fist. She's learning too fast. Shut it down. System isn't responding, Commander, said the aide. Evelyn's voice echoed through the speakers, distorted by feedback. You built this place to control minds, but you never considered what happens when a mind starts reading you. Then everything went white. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on the cold floor of the training dome. Her head ached, but she was conscious. Vorr stood above her, disbelief flickering behind his composure. You bypassed a level 5 compliance program, he said slowly. How? Evelyn sat up, wiping blood from her lip. By listening. Listening? To your machine. It talks too much. For a moment, the commander said nothing. Then he crouched beside her. You think cleverness will protect you? It won't. The mind is finite. Eventually it bends. Maybe yours, she said. He rose sharply, his eyes narrowing. You misunderstand your position here, human. You are not proving superiority. You are entertainment for those who already have it. Her gaze didn't waver. Then why are you so worried? He turned away before he could answer. Report to the tactical wing after meal cycle. You will join mixed drills. When he left, she noticed the cadets around the chamber, silent but watching. They'd seen her survive something meant to erase her. Fear and curiosity tangled in their faces. Later, in the dining sector, the hum of conversation paused when she entered. Alien cadets avoided her table. She didn't mind. She used the solitude to think. The simulation's patterns, the timing, the voices, everything had purpose. They wanted obedience, but obedience required understanding how to obey. That was their weakness. A shadow fell over her tray. She looked up to see a tall, feather-crested alien with pale green eyes. You shouldn't still be alive, he said, disappointed. He hesitated, then sat across from her. My name is Arik. Commander Vorr said you defied the system. Evelyn studied him. You sound almost impressed. I'm confused, he admitted. We were told humans broke easily. She smiled faintly. Maybe you were told wrong. Arik leaned closer. Careful who hears you. Some here think you're dangerous. I hope they keep thinking that. He blinked. You want them to fear you? I want them to think, she said. Fear comes after. That night, back in her quarters, she replayed the entire simulation from memory, sketching diagrams across the carbon sheet. The collar on her wrist flickered with faint blue light. She'd modified its circuits using fragments scavenged from training debris. Every pattern she decoded, every frequency she mapped, brought her closer to understanding the Academy's neural systems. Footsteps echoed outside her door. She hid the sheet just before the door slid open. Vorr entered without permission. His presence filled the small room. Still awake, he said. Still breathing, she replied. He stepped closer, scanning the space with his ocular implant. You're planning something. If I were, you'd never know until it was done. Vorr's expression darkened. Humans think in terms of revenge. That's your flaw. Always personal. Everything's personal when you've been invaded, she said softly. For a moment, something shifted in his face. Not sympathy, but recognition. He straightened. Tomorrow you'll face live drills. Physical and neural synchronization. Fail, and I'll end this farce myself. I've heard that before. From whom? Every conqueror who thought they'd already won. He left without another word. The door sealed and the silence returned. Evelyn leaned against the wall, exhaustion heavy but controlled. She'd seen the doubt flicker behind his composure. The first crack. She took the collar from her wrist, turned it over in her hand, and smiled faintly. The burn on her neck had faded into a thin scar, a reminder of who she used to be and what she was becoming. Outside her windowless cell, alarms echoed faintly across the decks. Shift changes, drills, routines. Life in the academy continued with its mechanical precision. But beneath it, something new was spreading. Whispers of the human girl who bent the machine that was meant to break her. Evelyn lay back on the bed, closing her eyes for a brief moment of rest. The game was no longer about survival. It was about control. Tomorrow she would stop reacting and start directing, and Commander Vorr would finally realize the truth that the human mind, once cornered, doesn't bow. It learns how to strike back. The morning began with a storm inside the academy. Orders screamed through comm channels, squads redirected, commanders summoned without explanation. Something had shifted overnight. Evelyn felt it the moment she stepped into the training hall. Silence where there should have been drills, eyes that looked away too late. The air tasted of unease. Commander Vorr stood at the far end, his expression carved from steel. "Cadet Drake," he said, voice cutting through the static of tension, "today you will demonstrate your value or confirm your species' weakness." Around them, hundreds of cadets filled the observation balconies. Evelyn could feel the weight of their stares pressing down like gravity. Vorr gestured toward the arena's center, a circle of pale light, sensors embedded in the floor, a hum of power beneath. "This is a live combat evaluation," Vorr continued. "Neural synchronization, reaction speed, survival instinct. You will face 5 opponents simultaneously. If you fall, you fail. If you surrender, you die." Evelyn stepped into the circle, calm, steady. "You should have stopped at 1, she said. A ripple of amusement flickered through the alien ranks, but Vorr didn't smile. He signaled the start. 5 armored cadets moved in, weapons glowing faintly blue. The moment they lunged, Evelyn was already moving. Precise, efficient, every motion calculated from hours of watching them train. She sidestepped a plasma spear, used its momentum to disarm the wielder, and sent the weapon spinning into another's chest. Sparks erupted as armor failed. 2 seconds later, another attacker charged. She ducked, twisted, and used the alien's own leverage against him. He hit the floor hard enough to crack the plating. Gasps rippled through the balconies. Vorr's voice echoed coldly. "You are not here to perform, human. You are here to learn obedience." Evelyn didn't answer. The next 2 came together, faster, coordinated. She pivoted, letting them collide mid-swing. The last one hesitated, uncertain whether to strike or flee. Evelyn met his eyes. He lowered his weapon first. She stood in the center again, surrounded by silence. Her breathing was calm, measured. The simulation sensors flickered, misreading her pulse as machine-like. Vorr descended from the command platform. Each step echoed through the hall. "You think this proves something?" he asked. "That physical tricks can rewrite hierarchy? It proves you don't understand the species you conquered," she replied. He circled her slowly. "You survive by accident. By instinct, not intelligence. You confuse resistance with superiority." She turned to face him fully. "Then test me," a murmur spread through the crowd. The challenge was forbidden. Students did not provoke commanders. Vorr studied her for a long moment, then removed his gauntlets one by one. The hall went completely still. "You want truth, human?" His tone was low, dangerous. "Truth is earned through defeat." He stepped into the arena. The floor sensors recognized a commander's authority and locked the perimeter. No one in or out. Evelyn's mind mapped every variable. Distance, his reach, weapon weight, floor resistance. Vorr attacked first, faster than she expected. His strike split the air where she had stood an instant earlier. The follow-up came immediately, a sweeping kick designed to crush bone. She ducked, feeling the air burn past her face. She countered with precision, striking at the joint of his lower arm. Metal cracked, but he didn't slow. His kind could suppress pain. She shifted tactics, used timing, not force. He drove her back with relentless aggression, claws sparking against the arena floor. Each blow echoed like thunder. When one finally connected, she hit the ground hard, sliding across the illuminated circle. Blood ran down her chin. "Stay down," he said. She spat onto the floor and rose. "Not my style." He moved again, but now his rhythm was predictable. Anger clouded precision. Evelyn sidestepped, slipped beneath his guard, and pressed the heel of her hand against the pressure node on his armor. A surge of light erupted as her improvised hack activated. The collar fragment she'd re-engineered days ago emitted a pulse that disrupted neural sync systems. Vorr froze mid-strike, muscles locked. The entire arena gasped. Evelyn circled him slowly, mirroring his own movements from the first day. "I studied your machines," she said. "Your drills. Your philosophy. You call it obedience, but it's dependency. Remove the control, and everything collapses." Vorr struggled, voice shaking. "You don't know what you're playing with." "On the contrary," she said quietly. "I finally understand it." She pressed another sequence into the device. The pulse expanded, disabling every sensor across the arena. The lights dimmed, leaving them under a faint red glow. Up on the balconies, cadets shouted, panicked. Their training systems failed one by one. The Academy's perfect order unraveled in seconds. Evelyn looked up at them. "You've been told obedience makes you strong," she said, her voice carrying through the malfunctioning speakers. "But strength isn't silence. It's choice." She turned back to Vorr. He forced movement through sheer will, taking one slow step forward. "You think you've won?" he hissed. "I didn't come here to win," she replied. "I came to show you what fear looks like when it learns to think." She stepped closer until their faces were inches apart. "Kneel, Commander," the word hung like a blade. Around them, cadets watched their supreme instructor falter. Vorr's body trembled as the neural disruption deepened. He dropped to one knee, teeth clenched, more from defiance than surrender. But the image was enough. The hall erupted in murmurs. No one had ever seen it before. A commander, kneeling before a human. Evelyn deactivated the pulse and stepped back. Vorr collapsed fully, breathing ragged. The Academy head entered through the shattered door, a tall figure cloaked in authority. "Explain this," he demanded. Evelyn turned to face him. "Your obedience system is flawed. You teach control without understanding resistance. You can break machines, not people." The head's gaze shifted between her and the fallen commander. "What do you propose?" She looked around the hall, at hundreds of cadets who no longer knew what to believe. "Teach them choice, or keep pretending they're free." For a long moment, no one moved. Then slowly, the head raised one hand. "End the simulation. Record the data. Cadet Drake is to remain under observation." As the hall cleared, Vorr struggled to stand. He met her eyes, fury and disbelief mixing into something else. Respect, perhaps, or the first glimpse of understanding. "You think this changes the order of the galaxy?" "It already has," she said. He stared at her a moment longer, then bowed his head, not in submission, but acknowledgement. When he finally left the arena, Evelyn stood alone in the pale aftermath of chaos. The Academy's systems rebooted one by one, lights returning to sterile white. She picked up the shattered fragment of her collar and slid it into her pocket. Around her, the once disciplined hum of machinery sounded different, less commanding, more uncertain. Outside the viewport, the gas giant turned slowly, its crimson storms swirling in eternal fury. Evelyn watched the reflection of that storm ripple across her eyes. They had tried to erase her will. Instead, she'd taught them something their empire had forgotten. Human defiance was not noise to be silenced. It was the heartbeat of evolution, she whispered to herself, voice steady and calm. You can cage a mind, but you can't command a soul. Then she walked out of the arena, leaving the broken order behind her.